Alright, everybody. My name is Joseph Goodman of Goodman Games, and if things go well, we are now talking to you all on Zoom and talking to other people on Twitch. So guys, I'm going to walk you through what's new with Goodman Games, just give you some ideas of some of the projects we're working on, some of the things that are taking up my time and the time of the artists and the writers and everybody else. One interesting aspect of this is we're all sort of exploring this online world, is I want to flash you a lot of graphics, but the graphics are actually best seen on the Twitch channel instead of the Zoom channel. So if you get a chance, open up twitch.tv and go to Goodman Games Official, because when I get to flashing graphics, that's where you're going to see most of them. And then to answer one of the questions here that just cropped up, if you want to ask questions, make it in the chat window. I'm trying to cover a lot of ground in about an hour, so I'll try to make room for questions, but if I don't get to it, feel free to email us afterwards, or post them on the forums, or on Facebook, or on Twitter, or Instagram, or the thousands of other ways to get in touch these days. Anyway, thanks and welcome, and thank you for coming by. It's always gratifying to hear what people are interested in. I'm going to cover a lot of ground in this call. It's going to cover everything from physical products to events we're planning to future things we're working on. So I'm just going to dive in, and then you guys just ask questions as you have them. So first of all, let's start with a message from our sponsors. And let's make sure this works properly. There we go. All right, guys. So Shanadahaka Games Online, do you? Obviously you do if you're attending this, but everybody stay on track, continue to practice your social distancing, and hopefully we will be back to normal in no time at all. Now, talking about a couple other things, while we're on the topic of social distancing and online gaming, I want to talk a little bit about some of the, what I'll call online initiatives that Goodman Games is pursuing. I mean, we live in just kind of a different place right now. As you all know, you're looking at my office. I'm sitting this from home instead of from GaryCon or Gen Con or one of the physical conventions where I would have had this conversation in the past. So some of the things that Goodman Games is doing to sort of get into the world of online gaming. And I'm just going to rattle off the list, and I'm open to more ideas if you guys have them. But the first is that everything, or almost everything, in our online store now is print plus PDF. So we've done print plus PDF on certain lines for quite a while. Like most of our 5th edition fantasy line has been that way for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years, since 5e came out. We layered on the DCC line 2 or 3 years ago, and various other lines, essentially as we could administratively, and as we have the rights, because certain lines are licensed and we don't have the rights to electronic. But at this point, everything in the online store where we do have the rights and the ability to offer you print as well as PDF when you buy the print purchase is now that way. In addition to that, we want to get to the point where we can give everybody what I'll call back access to PDFs for print products you bought in the past. That's easier said than done, mostly because there's a lot of Goodman Games books in print, and if people send us a list of, hey, here's the 52 books that I bought last year or over the last 5 years, could you give me the PDFs for that? And then we multiply that by a lot of customers, it essentially becomes impossible to meet the demand. So we tried that with the road crew a couple weeks ago, and it actually worked out well as an experiment. So you'll see an announcement on the website in a couple weeks where we're going to roll that out to everybody. So essentially, if you own printed Goodman Games books that were published before we had the free PDF offer, if you just send us a photo of you with the books and give us a list of what titles you want, as long as we have the rights to send you that PDF, we will. So look for that coming out in a couple weeks. And really the limiting factor is going to be sort of how fast we can process the requests. So we'll probably ask people initially to send us no more than 5 books. And if we get through that list in a reasonable amount of time, based on the number of people who respond and how many people send us 5 books, then maybe we'll roll out your next 5 books or 10 books or whatever we can handle, just workload-wise, to actually send out the PDFs. The other thing that has recently been updated on our website is the PDF section of the online store. It's now much cleaner and easier to use. It's been there for quite some time. It's been around for years, and it was one of those things that's easy to stop looking at or not notice as much, but we've been paying closer attention to it now. So the address is easy, goodmangames.com/store/PDF. Take a look when you get a chance. It's a great chance to find all the old out-of-print items. And it's also got me thinking about what are the things that we have never offered via PDF that we could. There are certain just random titles over the years that we either lost track of or never really put the PDF up for sale, or even some of the convention specials, for example, which in the past would be exclusive to conventions, but since you can't go to conventions anymore, maybe we now put those up as PDFs. So look for more in the PDF section of the store soon, and hopefully between a special, better PDF section and the print plus PDF options, it should hopefully round out the options you have for playing online. The other thing is to be aware of this Twitch channel that I'm talking to many of you on right now. So on this Twitch channel, we've had some level of content for several months now, and we're now going to be ramping that up. The goal is to give you guys a sense of how much fun our games are to play and hopefully allow you to participate. So look for more active live streaming content after this weekend. CyclopsCon was us diving in deep and just getting started and sort of learning and familiarizing ourselves. And now that we have dived in deep, we have a much better idea of what we can do and how we can do it, and there'll be a lot more content coming soon. And I should say out loud, if you're on the road crew and you're running DCC Online and you would like to stream your game to our channel, we are looking for road crew who are interested in that. We're interested in your ideas for how we can make the channel more user accessible to you. So we've posted a lot of backgrounds and tokens and things like that on the website, graphics for people to use. But if there's other things that you think would make it easier for you to take your game online, just let us know. One of the things that Brendan has started doing is running the Tuesday Night Demo Club. So if you go to the events page on our website, you'll see that every Tuesday is the Tuesday Night Demo Club, and you can RSVP through the events page. It's only for new players who've never played DCC before, but the idea is it's a great place for new players to just join in and play for the first time, online of course. It won't be on Twitch. But that idea is sort of taken hold of their head. So we're thinking of other ways that we can use the events page, either allow road crew to get RSVPs through the events page, so you can just open up your game to players, whoever might want to sign up, as well as open up our own channel to perhaps more experienced players on a different night of the week or something like that perhaps can be streamed. We're open to ideas on this subject. I think we're all in a different space right now, staying home all the time and interacting more in venues like this. So if you have ideas for how we can better utilize Twitch or connect with you guys better, just throw those ideas out because we're open to it. Finally, for purposes of online gaming, we've had Fantasy Grounds conversions for a while, and you can find an easy link to that section on our website. But we'll be diving in deep to Roll20 soon, and we'll talk about that more soon too. So you hopefully will have quite a few different options for what you might want to do. Now, I should say outright that you may hear children playing or even crying in the background. Like I mentioned, I am now streaming this from home. It's amazing how many people's homes I have seen via Zoom over the last couple of weeks. We've gone from acting professionally in an office to looking at people's bedrooms. So it's just the way life is right now. If you hear background noise, or if any of you guys have background noise that distracts you, we're going to run with it because that's the way life is right now. All right, so that's a little bit on online initiatives. I'm going to switch gears for a moment and pull up something else. Meanwhile, you guys can listen to a word from our sponsors here. All right. Now, next up, I wanted to talk about some what I'm going to call just some pending books. Let me make sure I have this pulled up correctly. So we actually have quite a few titles that are, in the works, and I think nearly ready for you guys to check out. And by the way, I should say I'm about to start switching to graphics, which you'll see easier on the Twitch channel. So if you're in Zoom and not on Twitch, it's a good time to switch over to the Twitch as well to make sure you can see these graphics. Last year was interesting for us because we had a lot of projects that were in good shape and ready to go to press and ready to even go out to customers. But on the back side of things that is usually invisible to customers, we had some logistics challenges. So we worked with a fulfillment house, and that company merged with another company, and what we'd hoped would be a great opportunity for everybody turned into about a year's worth of logistics challenges. And many of you witnessed that firsthand, especially if you were involved in our Lankmar or annual Kickstarters that shipped during all of that situation last year. So sorry once again for the logistics hassles. The good news is we now have a different logistics company handling the Kickstarter fulfillment, and it's gone much smoother. So if you backed Cthulhu Alphabet, for example, the whole project shipped in like 7 days. It's been much cleaner now. But one of the consequences of last year was not just the logistics hiccups for a lot of you guys, but also the fact that we had several projects that were very close to completion that just couldn't quite get over the finish line because we were busy dealing with other stuff. So I had really exciting, high hopes for 2020. This was going to be the year where we, finally pushed a lot of projects through, things that are really ready for the public to see, and we're going to, get them. It's going to bring a chance to bring a lot of great projects to you guys. Unfortunately, we now have the coronavirus. So what that means is we're currently in a situation where a lot of the supply chain that we would normally use just doesn't exist anymore. The primary fulfillment house that we use is shut down, which they should be for health reasons. The primary, or I guess most of the distributors we use to get products from the fulfillment house to retailers are shut down, as they should be. Most retailers are shut down, as they should be. So the question of when we start pushing some of these projects out to get into your hands remains to be seen. So I'm going to show you a lot of cool projects that are pretty far along. In some cases, almost completely laid out with art done. In other cases, edited, ready for layout. And I'm just showing you what we have out there ready to go. If and when this thing is over, I shouldn't say if, when this thing is over and we can release projects again, then we will, get this conveyor belt moving again. And one other thing we've talked about is, do we just switch gears? Do we do PDF only for a while and then give fans the chance to perhaps upgrade from PDF to print along the way? Like, there's a lot of ways to do this that, at least get things moving now, and then later on you can catch up, so to speak, that avoid the physical distribution chain, which is what's causing a lot of the delays. But anyway, in the meantime, let me just show you some things that look really cool and might make you kind of happy. So let's pull this over. So let me actually cover it myself there. Hold on one sec, please. So let me let this catch up. What you should be seeing now, as soon as Twitch catches up, is the cover to DCC 100. There we go. So this is the cover to DCC 100. The music of the spheres is chaos. So this is Harley Stroh's masterpiece. This is number 100 in the Dungeon Crawl Classic series. This is the module, and we've been talking about this for, I want to say, 3 or 4 years maybe. But this is the adventure that features 5 spinning maps. It has one of the most complex dungeons that I've ever seen. The art here is by Doug Kovacs, and as you can see, it looks awesome. Anyway, it's largely complete. One of the single biggest hurdles on this one, besides, Harley did the writing, which is fantastic, and went through editing, but actually getting the maps right was a huge challenge, because there's 5 spinning wheels. And producing this will essentially be like producing a board game. It's almost going to be like a boxed board game. So when the opportunity arises, we would love to send DCC number 100 to Kickstarter, because this really is a unique project. I've never seen any other module that's anything like this. So soon enough that will come, but we're working on it, and it's just a matter of getting through everything and getting it on schedule. So next up, I want to show you Dungeon Crawl Classics Empire of the East. So if you've read Appendix N, and we've talked about this project before, but if you've read Appendix N, Fred Saberhagen and Empire of the East, which is one of his, in my opinion, one of his best works. It's an awesome post-apocalyptic setting that's equal measures, fantasy and science fiction. This cover is by Ian Miller, who's one of my just childhood favorites. I was a huge fan of his work in the Games Workshop era, especially Realms of Chaos. If any of you guys remember that book, which is, I still have a copy on my shelf. It's incredible. Anyway, this book it's written, it's edited, the layout's done, about 95% of the art is complete. It's really ready to go, and this was going to be one of our next Kickstarters, but again, we're kind of on pause at the moment. So this will be coming your way soon, hopefully very soon. As soon as we get past some of the current hurdles. I just wanted you to know it's out there and it's coming your way soon. So next up, I wanted to show you the DCC Tome of Adventure. So this is something that personally I resisted for a long time, and I'm actually going to pause here for a minute to show you a photograph of one corner of my office. So this is one corner of my office, and I wouldn't normally show you pictures of my office or my house or any of that, but it's a new world, guys. I've seen so many people's bedrooms, living rooms, kitchens, offices over the last couple weeks or month or so of Zooming instead of meeting in person, so might as well share here. Anyway, this corner of my office, there's a couple things to note. First of all, I think I have the only Dungeon Crawl Classics lamp in existence. That's a legacy from a spinner rack that we did a long time ago. And I was able to kind of connect the top of the old spinner rack to my office lamp. The big pile of books in the corner is my Conan book collection. One of my guilty pleasures is that every year at Gen Con, we set up a vintage bookstore and we sell old pulp novels. And what I get to do is be the buyer for that project for about a year. So I spend 11 and a half months every year essentially buying up old paperback novels and keeping the ones I like the most. And then the rest of them go to Gen Con and we sell them. Then I get to do it again, which is always a lot of fun. So I have an excessively large paperback novel collection, which every year I tell my wife, but don't worry, I'm going to sell it all at Gen Con, and then I always end up keeping a few. But anyway, the other thing to note in this picture is the spinner rack. So I am a longtime fan of spinner racks. This one I think is actually from the 60s, My wife got it for me as I think it was a birthday present, or maybe Father's Day. But a couple of years ago, one of the local bookstores was going out of business, and she talked him into selling this spinner rack fixture, which is sized for those classic paperback novels from back in the 60s and 70s era. And, I've always been a fan of spinner racks, whether it's comic book spinner racks or magazine racks or, old novel racks. And part of the reason I pursue the publishing format that I do, which is lots of, skinny modules, is that I like those skinny modules because they display really well in a spinner rack format, and you get this amazing cover art, which is just something I love. Unfortunately, I am one of the last people standing who who still likes that approach. Most retailers now really prefer hardback books because you can also shelve them spine out. And so I'm finally biting the bullet and doing a hardback collection of some of the DCC modules. Now, in my mind, I've always been resistant to this in part because I just prefer that skinny module format, but also because I want the cover art. I like having all those amazing illustrations in there. And so what we may do with this is essentially add some of the cover art on the in sheets or something like that. So you can still see some of the original awesome art. But anyway, this is the cover that Doug did for the Tome of Adventure Volume 1. The plan is to release maybe 2 of these a year, more or less, and each one will have in it, depending on how the page counts break out, maybe 5 or 6 of the DCC modules pulled together. And the idea is just to give people an easy way to collect some of the ones that have been around for a while, and if you want to get them in sort of a slightly more affordable edition, because it will be cheaper to buy the hardback than to buy them individually. But also for retailers. A lot of retailers and distributors really would prefer this kind of format. And it's true. It really is true. This is better for them. I actually did a spinner rack promotion during the 3rd edition era, and we sold over 400 spinner racks. But that was like 10 years ago, and I think a lot of those are out of commission now. Retailers really want the hardcover, so I'm going to try to give them that. Anyway, again, release date TBD, depending on a lot of factors, but the idea is that we would love to give this to you guys and to retailers at some point whenever we're able to. So now, let's talk about X-Crawl Classics. And actually, just to answer one of the comments on the Zoom, Sean Smith, you are correct. If you're on the Zoom, you're only going to get the camera feed. The best way to see the images that I'm trying to show is if you go to Twitch, twitch.tv, and look for the channel Goodman Games Official. That's the best way to get the images as well. And then to answer one other question that just came through, the Tome of Adventure will not have new content. The goal is simply to collect everything that has been, I shouldn't say everything, collect, in volumes, 5 or 6 DCC modules as previously published and make those published in a manner that's more suitable to how retailers display. Now to talk about X-Crawl Classics. So, I've had a relationship with X-Crawl the game for 15 years at least. I first met Brendan long before we worked together. We met together at, I think it was the Alliance Open House, like 15 or 20 years ago, back when he was working on the original X-Crawl under, I think it was under 3.0 rules. But I've always loved the game. It just sums up to me everything that dungeon crawling should be about, adding in the sort of game show elements, the real life satire, just the ability to, as a dungeon judge, as it's called in that game, to sort of create the dungeon exactly as you'd like without the constraints of ecology and so on, and to mix in all the fun wackiness that makes X-Crawl awesome. So X-Crawl Classics, the role-playing game, has been announced. Again, sort of held up in this pipeline as we work through some of the current distribution and supply chain issues. But the idea is that this will be coming you guys' way, or the Kickstarter will be coming your way, again, as soon as we can. And this is Doug Kovacs's cover, which I love. A lot of the X-Crawl volumes over the last couple of years have had a certain look, and Doug managed to take that look, keep a lot of the live for TV elements and a lot of the other elements that made it great, and then also give it something fresh and exciting. So it's cool, and I'm really looking forward to you guys seeing it. So next thing I want to talk to you about, the greatest thieves in Lankmar. A lot of you guys just backed the Kickstarter for this, so thank you very much for supporting us. We certainly had perhaps the best or maybe the worst timing in the world when we launched this Kickstarter. But this will be the next Lankmar box set. It is a great adventure. It's based on our Gen Con tournament from last year, and we've had several sessions actually run at Cyclops Con this weekend, including another one, or 2 more, I think, tonight. And one of the things we wanted to do with this project was to run what I call the International Tournament of Thieves, which would be a way to run essentially a vast online tournament where everybody can experience that Gen Con tournament feel and pressure and tension and everything, but do it in a way that reaches out to the whole world, not just those people who can make it to Gen Con. What's really cool here is that the one way you can make lemons out of lemonade is we're diving pretty deep into online gaming, and I'm just cooking up more ideas along with some of the other guys about how we can actually utilize the skills we're now building to really have a really cool international tournament of Thieves, perhaps using this adventure or another one. But this adventure is phenomenal. All of our tournament adventures are great. They are assembled by a large crew where each person works on one or maybe two encounters, but focuses very heavily on those. Then they're pulled together and sort of connected together by a managing crew, Mark and Harley in this case. But the process of doing that means that each encounter in each room gets a lot of special attention, and it inevitably produces terrific adventures. So this one, again, we have Kickstarted it. This will be the next one. Let's see, it's going into editing very soon, and then it'll go into layout and so on. So this will probably be the nearest to actually reach a print form to you guys out of the ones I just mentioned. It's coming soon, as soon as we can get everything back on track after this whole situation. So I'm going to switch gears now, and let's talk a little bit about Dying Earth. Show you some art here. All right. So this is Doug's cover to Dungeon Crawl Classics Dying Earth. Now, we've been talking about this project for a couple of years, and it's amazing. Everything about it's amazing. Mark Bruner led the development team and did a terrific job. It is. I was just telling the story the other night. We work with the estate of Jack Vance, and John Vance is Jack's son, and I sent him the manuscript not long ago, and he wrote back and said it was phenomenal, and he has no change requests, no edits, it's perfect. He basically said there's nothing to change. It's really a stellar project. Mark Bruner, as I mentioned, was the lead. A lot of other people contributed and really made it what it was. Terry Olson, Bob Brinkman, and Julian Burnick all had a heavy hand in this. And then Brendan, Harley, and Mike are all involved in little ways as well. So I think it's going to be just a fantastic project. It's going to be a box set. There will be 3 books inside, and then a host of modules that we're working on. Now, this cover is amazing for a lot of reasons. I think one of the reasons I like it is that it looks like the Dying Earth when you read the book. There's discussions of the reddish tones and the mountains that have been worn off by millennia of erosion and things like that. And I think Doug's captured, honestly, in this book, in this cover, things that weren't necessarily captured in many of the other Dying Earth book covers that I've seen. I think it's just outstanding. And that's the cover. That's a double wide cover, so to speak. So for the box set, we're going to have that somehow wrap around. Still working out details. But then this is what the, and I'm looking at this on Twitch. The colors actually look amazing on my screen and don't look quite as rich on Twitch. So at some point, you guys will see the printed version where the colors will look even better. But anyway, this is what the book cover will look like. This is the typeset and so on, which, again, also looks amazing. So you'll see that at some point as well. But now I want to talk about the adventure modules. So I shouldn't even say adventure modules. First, the 3 booklets inside. One of the ways we do this is if you're going to have a box set, that means you have stuff inside, and each of those things inside can have cover art. And then, of course, we also want to expand it with a lot of adventure modules. So let's start with some of the inside contents. This is the cover to, I don't even remember what the title is. But I've just walked you through some of the covers. There's several covers for some of the interior volumes, and then several covers for some of the modules that I have to show off here. Doug did this one. Again, you can see the sun, which looks incredible, and I think really captures how the Dying Earth might actually look. I also love the back creature in the center there. If you notice the way Doug paints anatomy, he doesn't usually paint female characters this way, but he did it in this kind of a distorted way to get across the back creature look and feel. Another one that I want to cover for you guys that's just another amazing piece of art is this one. So if there's one artist that you think of when you think of Jack Vance and the Dying Earth, it's Errol Otis. Many of you guys who own the original, I think it was the red book edition of D&D from way back in the day. But there's that classic image that Errol Otis drew of the 3 wizards fighting over a bauble, so to speak. There's magical treasure, and the 3 of them are fighting over it. Errol Otis has been a huge Jack Vance fan for forever. And I've known this for years, as long as I've known him. And I was just kind of, waiting for the chance to ask him to work on this project. That chance finally came. So this is Errol's cover to one of the booklets in the box set, which is just fantastic and really gets across some of the weirdness and wonder of the Dying Earth. And then another person that we've asked to work on this is Russ Nicholson. So many of you know Russ's work from TSR era. He worked on the Fiend Folio a long time ago, which is, some of my favorite works of art ever. And then there have just been many other fabulous projects he's worked on ever since. But Russ's work is incredible, and his color work, I love it because it has this look and feel that's different from a lot of the modern work. I have to throw out a little bit of a PS here. So I have certain opinions on art, and they've been clarified by what I've had the chance to work on over the last couple of years. But almost all the work at Goodman Games that we publish features hand-drawn art. So what that means is when the artist completes the work, there's what I call a physical artifact left over. That means there's a painting or a sketch or an inked board or something like that's left behind when they finish the work. It's not just on the screen. And I don't have anything against digital art. And actually there's a lot of awesome digital art out there. I just like the look and feel of physical art better. I think you can do things with that medium that you can't do with digital. And there's certain telltale signs. A lot of digital art, the shades of black are always the same because somebody draws with a black filter. Whereas in physical art, the blacks often vary. You get various shades of black and gray because ink doesn't always spread perfectly evenly. You sometimes see pencil marks, or in the case of this image right here, you see a different look to the art because there's a different physical medium being done, whether it's going to be watercolors or pencils or something that's different from the traditional, Photoshop acrylic oil filter. So anyway, I love the look and feel of all the physical art that we publish. This is by Russ Nicholson, which again has a completely different look and feel, and it's for one of the DCC Dying Earth Adventure modules. And it will, once again, just bring amazing visual life to the project. So I'm going to show you another piece of art. And I realize I'm not talking as much about the content, but I think the work will speak for itself when you get a chance to read it. I'm just showing you some of the art here. Also in part because one of the great, if you think about this new online venue that we have, one of the great things that I can do for you right now is show you art. It's actually easier to show you art online in this format than it ever was doing panels at GaryCon and Gen Con. So this next image is by Errol Otis, and it's for an adventure module in the series called The Laughing Idol of Larshan, which was written by Julian. But again, just more classic Errol Otis, crazy wizards. I mean, there's many great things about this art, but I also love the fact that if you look at his helmet, he appears to be wearing a small city shrunk into his head. But just it speaks for itself. I don't need to say anything else. I'll keep going, show you some more cool pieces. I also asked somebody else to participate in this project. So you guys have probably heard of San Julian. He's done many amazing covers for the DCC line over the last couple of years, as well as some of the third-party publishers. And of course, he did the covers for the line of Conan novels in the 70s and developed the look for Vampirella and was the cover for a lot of Creepy and Eerie from Warren Publishing back in the 70s. I mean, his career is incredible. But he was willing to paint a wizard for the Dying Earth series, which looks incredible and will be the cover of one of the adventure modules. And just what the heck, one more while we're here. There's one other image that I wanted to show you. Again, another cover by Russ Nicholson, which is also just really incredible. And again, has that, I love how each of these has their own distinctive look and feel. There's different mediums at work. And I think it does a really good job of just making everything look special. So, hope you've enjoyed that. That's some of the projects that are all at various stages of completion, either like in the case of Empire of the East, completely laid out and just about ready to go, or leading up to to Dying Earth, we're at various stages of manuscripts being written but not yet edited and starting to do cover art. And I hope that you'll have the chance to see all of these in the next year. But it depends on certain elements in the world, but as soon as possible, we'll bring these to you. So now, let's think about Hugh the Barbarian for a sec while I bring up something else. And I have a couple panelists who will be joining me in a little bit, just not quite yet, but they'll come on soon. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about DCC Day. So a couple months ago, we announced DCC Day. As you guys recall, this was, or at least for me, it was very exciting. It was going to be our version of a lot of things rolled up into one, but kind of our version of a mini convention and free RPG day, and just a chance for gamers to run games at their local game store or really at home and just get a lot of cool free stuff and build excitement and build connections among the community. Only a month ago, I was at the Gamma Expo with Brett and John and Brendan, and we were there. We had a booth there, and we were talking to lots of retailers, and we actually had a ton of retailers sign up. And I'm sure some of you guys know I've been involved in Free RPG Day since the very first year, and I have those original metrics from that first Free RPG Day at my fingertips. And we had a great sign up at the Game Expo. We were on track to do as many or more signups for the first year of DCC Day as Free RPG Day had in its first year. And anyway, over the 4 days that we were in Reno for the Gamma Expo, that's when the news about the virus broke. So, day 1, we started washing our hands a lot more, and by day 4, we were, staring at each other suspiciously whenever somebody, sneezed or coughed a little bit. So, luckily, we all walked away with nobody getting sick. But it certainly changed how I'm thinking about DCC Day. Of course, part of it is that a lot of retailers are closed, so we don't want to run an event that they can't participate in, because the whole point of this is to bring, customers into retail stores. That's a big part of it, but it also got me thinking about how do we add an online component to it, because Cyclops Con, and many of you guys as fans have demonstrated that there's a huge opportunity out there for online gaming. So we're going to announce more details in about a week. The short version is we've pushed DCC Day out about a month. Free RPG Day actually moved into July, so we're going to push DCC Day out into the weekend that was formerly occupied by Free RPG Day in mid-June. But we're also going to print the posters and everything without a hard date on it, so that retailers who are in parts of the country that are more or less affected, if they want to do it on a different date and that works out for them locally, they can do that. So it'll become something of a local decision. We'll still produce the materials and ship them to all the stores that sign up. That's what we're going to do for now. I'm hopeful that this will be an answer that will work for retailers, but we also want retailer opinions. So we gave retailers a sneak preview of this decision about a week ago. And so far the reception's been positive, but if you're a store, especially a participating store, and you have an opinion on this, definitely let us know. But the online component we're going to add will allow stores who have, streaming enabled rooms to stream their own games or stream the games of Road Crew in their, in their rooms, so the store can get credit for this and hopefully bring in some more customers. We want to think about ways to integrate every way we can retailers into the process. And again, if you guys have suggestions, I'm totally open to them. But we have to think broader and think differently and find a way for this to work for everybody. But all that said, I wanted to take a moment and actually show you guys some of the things we're going to be doing. So this is one of the freebies that will come out on DCC Day. It's the Adventure Pack. This art's not final. I mean, Hue will be on there for sure, but the cover design will move around a little bit. It's called the Adventure Pack. You can think of this as kind of like the freebie supplement, so to speak. This first year, we'll have 3 adventures in here. There'll be a brand new DCC adventure, a brand new DCC Linkmar adventure, a brand new Mutant Crawl Classics adventure. And the best part is it's all free. Every store that signs up will get a set of these booklets, and if they want more, they can just sign up for a second kit. And by the way, the sign up for retailers is quite affordable. It was actually free at the Gamma Expo if they also purchased basically restocks on older titles. And now that we're past the Gamma Expo, it'll still be very affordable for stores that also pick up restocks. So stores, if you're interested, just email info@goodmangames.com and we'll give you all the details. But this is free to consumers and very cheap to stores. And the idea is that if you visit your local store, which we would encourage you all to do on DCC Day, you get one of these for free. The other thing that we'll have that day will be the Shadow of the Beakman. So this is a brand new level 1 adventure written by Harley Stroh. This will actually have a price tag on it. It'll be $10, but it'll be exclusive for DCC Day. So the only way to get a copy of this will be from a participating store. And guys, we want to get you out in the stores. I realize we also want to game one way or the other, and it's totally fine to game online. But stores really are the lifeblood of our community in many ways. And as much as possible, I want to find a way to get people visiting stores and picking up titles. If we are still in this crazy world of, social distancing by the time we get to mid-June, then perhaps we'll have to figure out a plan B. But ultimately, the goal is to make this module special and exclusive to participating stores. And it's a great adventure. I won't get into all the details, but it's a great adventure, and I think you'll all enjoy it. The other thing that will be free, of course, is Quickstart Rules. We give these away every year on Free RPG Day, but there will also be a printed version that has the DCC Day logo. And I should make a confession here for those of you who don't know. We release these Quickstart Rules every year on Free RPG Day, and there's 2 adventures inside. One of them is always Portal into the Stars, and then if you flip the module over, there's always an all-new adventure in the back, and that adventure changes every year, which I think most people know. So a lot of the fans who have been with us for many years will go to their stores still on Free RPG Day to get a new copy of the Quickstart Rules, even though the rules didn't change, but the flip side adventure did change. But the rules actually do change. This is my confession for all you guys. If you look year over year in the Quickstart Rules, we swap out the spells every year. So every year there's 5 wizard spells and 5 cleric spells in the Quickstart Rules, but it's a different set of 5 spells. So I believe this year is the 4th year we've done this. But if you are the collector type, or if you're just a person who's used Quickstart Rules to play your game from year to year, you would have gotten a slightly different experience every year because there's a different set of spells in every Quickstart Rules. Anyway, that's just a fun Easter egg for those who are interested. The other thing that will be premiering at DCC Day is this edition of the cover. Just last year we did a Kickstarter for the DCC 7th printing, and I really should have printed more because we sold out. So the 8th printing is now printed. It's actually on the way over here from the printer, and one of the covers available will be this. So this is what I call the Angry Hue Edition, and we initially did this cover just for DCC Day. And actually, based on the print run, there's not going to be that many more available after DCC Day. But I love this cover, and it just keeps growing on me. So I feel like whenever I have to do the 9th printing, I need to just do a lot more of these, or maybe do them in soft cover or something, because this cover is amazing. But anyway, every store that signs up for the DCC Day kit will get 2 copies of this hardcover with this special cover. I should also point out the back cover is new art too. You've all seen that classic green triangular image, so to speak, that's on the back cover with Hugh and Farah. We realized as we were doing this layout that now Hugh's on the front cover, so he should also be in the back cover. So Doug painted a brand new, what I'll call triangle piece of art for the back, which is a purplish tones and has Shanna. It actually looks amazing. Anyway, these 2 pieces of art will only be on this edition of the hardcover, which will only be available from DCC Day retailers. And somewhere down the road, I will probably reprint it because I love the art. But again, a great reason to visit your local retail store on DCC Day to pick these up. So that's it for the DCC Day portion. Now I'm going to switch over for a minute and bring you a message from our sponsors. And then we will also be bringing in a couple people real quick. Let's see. Let me find Chris and Rick and bring them into the calls. Let's make sure everybody's here. Hey, Rick and Chris, can you guys hear me? All right. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and let me get this set up to show everybody our smiling faces.
Can you hear me?
Yep, hearing loud and clear. Rick, you there?
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rick. Good.
Excellent.
All right, hold 1 sec, and we will get this ready for streaming. All right, Rick, go ahead and turn on your video. All right.
There we go.
All right, guys. So, taking everything live here. Guys, allow me to introduce Chris Doyle and Rick Maffei. So these guys have been working with Goodman Games for 15 years, something like that. Quite a while.
Too long.
Too long. Yeah. Not long enough, Chris. There's many more fun projects to do. So you will, if you go back to the 3rd edition era, you'll find their names as credits on many fine adventure modules. And what we're here to talk about today is really the original Adventures Reincarnated series. So I'm going to first just talk the audience through a couple existing projects we've been working on, which really means stuff that Chris and or Rick has been working on. We're going to show you a couple covers and then work our way up to something really cool. So first, let's talk about the Lost City. And again, guys, follow along on Twitch if you want to see the graphics because they're a little harder to see here. But Chris and actually Chris was primarily involved in the Lost City along with Tim. But this is a classic D&D adventure from TSR. It's actually at the printer now. Sorry, I should say it's shipped from the printer. And should be available hopefully just in time for the warehouses and distributors to reopen. But this will be volume 4 in the original Adventures Reincarnated series and is on its way here now. And then we have volume 5 in the series, which is the Castle Amber, which, we had our seminar yesterday about what are our favorite TSR adventure modules, and everybody ranked this one high. So it's an awesome adventure. This one is in, let's see, all the layout is done, all the editing is done, about half the art is done. And if things go well, the original plan was for this to release at, Origins, which now is in October. What that really meant was a June release date, more or less, depending on things. And now with the situation the way it is, I can't really predict release dates at all. But hopefully coming soon to a store near you or directly to you. Once we actually have it, the printer will open it up for pre-orders. You can pre-order the Lost City right now because it's at the printer on its way here. We'll open up Castle Amber soon. But listen, now I'm gonna flip the page to something, and I'm just gonna let the art speak for itself for a minute, and then we will circle back and talk for a while. but I thought you guys might want to see this. It's pretty cool, huh? I'll wait for Twitch to catch up. There's a little bit of lag here. And then, all right, come on, Twitch. You can do it. All right, and then if that one's, if you like that one, check out this one. So let this sink in a little bit before we start. Twitch is finally catching up. Okay, good. We'll give this a sec, and then we'll start talking to you guys about some of this.
The chat starts going.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. All right, so now let's flip back a little bit here, make sure we can get all this working correctly. And all right, so now I'm going to fade back to us guys. So Chris was the lead designer on Original Adventures Volume 6, The Temple of Elemental Evil, and Rick played a heavy hand as well, doing a lot of the conversions and writing. So guys, I wanted to bring them in here just to pick their brains a little bit and find out, a little bit about their experience and so on. So I figured I'd start by just asking Chris a question. Chris, this is one of those adventures that everybody loves and remembers. What is it in your mind that makes it such a special and sort of enduring adventure that people can't forget?
Well, I think there's a lot of things, but the size. It was 128 pages long. And that didn't include the maps. The map booklet was separate when it actually was published as T1 through 4. And I think most people understand the history, how T1 came out, Village of Hamlet, in 1979, and then they said T2 coming, Temple of Elemental Evil, and then it didn't come for 6 years until 1985. So even back then, you tease something and then it doesn't come out, it tends to get even more exciting. And it certainly did when it dropped. It was amazing, and really, it was it was TSR's first in one manual, mega dungeon essentially of multiple levels down deep, and that part was exciting about it. So and Gygax himself penned it, and Frank Menser helped him out with the sequel and everything. But it's steeped in history. And fond memories, I think, from many, many gamers.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe, Rick, tell me what your most memorable encounter or NPC is from Temple of Elemental Evil.
Well, definitely the third dungeon level is my favorite level. And my favorite room is on that level, which is the so-called Inky Chamber. And the basic setup is a paladin prince has been expelled, and an illusion has been put upon him to make him look like a vampire. And then he has been kind of imprisoned in this room. And evil forces within the temple have set up things so the adventurers can possibly be duped into thinking he's a vampire and staking him. And I love the setup. It's done in a very layered Gygaxian style, in that when you walk into the room, you don't even see the coffin with the illusionary vampire. Even that's hidden. So first, adventurers have to uncover this invisible casket, find the casket, which then looks like a vampire when it's revealed, and then they have to see through that second deception. And even in this kind of jaded day and age of, people knowing most adventure tropes, I think that double-layered deception might be enough to fool people. And it's just the whole setup of evil tricking good into slaying a hero of good is just so deliciously evil that it's a favorite of mine.
Yeah. Chris, what about you? What's your favorite or most memorable one?
A lot more simpler. The ruined moat house and giant frogs. You lose your cherished gnome illusionist thief down the gullet of a giant frog, only to be cut out later and spilled back onto the marsh with all of the entrails and everything. And that will teach you a lesson to make sure that you have a small bladed weapon with you at all times so you can get yourself out. So definitely my favorite, and definitely the giant frogs.
Yeah. So do you guys remember the first time you ever encountered the original Temple of Elemental Evil? Or I guess Village of Hamlet, either one. What was your first encounter with it?
My first encounter, I certainly remember the Temple of Elemental Evil. It was at my friendly local game store. But kind of referring to what Chris mentioned earlier, the important thing is the context of when this took place, and that, there was a 6-year gap. And at that point, for the younger viewers, obviously there was no internet, there were no forums. You really almost couldn't even contact TSR except for writing a letter to Dragon Magazine. So nobody had any idea when this was going to drop. And it was kind of unexpected. Gygax would get to things when he got to things. And after 6 years, I had almost put it in the back of my head and forgotten about it. And then I walked into the game store once, and boom, there was that, there was that art, and it's just such a great cover. There's multiple versions. All the cover versions are great, but I just remember seeing that art, and it screams evil, and it's such a nice counterpoint after the Village of Hamlet, because the Village of Hamlet is very much about sussing out, where evil might lurk and investigative and that kind of thing, where the Temple cover, there's no ambiguity. It screams evil. They might as well put a billboard on the front lawn of the Temple saying, "Evil's here, bring it if you dare." And I love that counterpoint. And I just remember walking into the game store and being blown away by that cover. It was an insta-buy,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very similar to when I ran into it in the store. Like you said, you didn't have Twitch, you didn't have forums, you didn't have announcements for products, and all of a sudden, you saw it on the scroll. I mean, did a lot of people even read on the front cover that T2 was coming soon? And then, you always played, you're like, wow, Village of Hamlet was good, but but that's it. It was just a ruined moat house. And then all of a sudden, years later, you come across it. I think I came across it in a game store. And again, I was at the point where I bought every TSR module back then. And, if I didn't have it, I just instantly bought it I wouldn't even break it open or anything. I would just buy it and then get to it at some point. And that was the very same instance.
Yeah, that's cool. So, we obviously converted this to 5th edition, or I shouldn't say we, you guys converted it to 5e. And just to throw it out there, for you guys who have purchased some of the other volumes in the original Adventures Reincarnated series, what TSR could do in 12, 16, maybe 20 pages takes us 200 or 300 under the way we convert it. So our initial estimates are that the 5e conversion of Temple of Elemental Evil will probably be a 2-volume book. We're looking at probably 500 to 600 pages. So our plan, and I showed you 2 covers, the plan is to probably publish it as 2 volumes in a slipcased edition. And then the, quote, gray cover that I showed you earlier will go everywhere. And then that burgundy cover will probably be exclusive to game stores. TBD yet if it's like exclusive on the slipcover or the volumes inside, or working on those details. But we'd like to, there's also the old green Jeff D cover to Hamlet as well. So there's a lot of options here. There could be a lot of cool stuff coming. But that's the general plan. The original goal was to have it out by Christmas time. Again, everything's up in the air right now, so it's coming soon. Actually, we're going to follow the Gary Gygax release schedule. It'll get done when it's done. It'll be out when it's out, as soon as we can get it done. But going back to the 5e element of it, maybe you guys could just tell everybody a little bit about, what new material you created. What was it like converting it to 5e? What has that experience been like?
Well, I'll give the rundown on the new material, and then I'll let Rick jump into some of the conversion part. And first of all, just to let folks know, so the previous 5 modules that we've done were done by a solo person. We're writing them, and then we had our editor also working on the conversion. This product, since it's so much larger, we actually have a team. It's myself, it's Rick, and then we have 2 other authors as well. I just want to shout them out too, Jason and Jim. So those also. So this is definitely a team approach. But some of the new stuff that we've added wilderness encounter tables for that in between the village of Hamlet and getting to the temple. And these are very much similar design to what we did in Isle of Dread, where we have actually encounter tables, but we also have fixed encounter sites, and some of those are a little bit, with a small map and a couple of encounter areas. If those remember the module fondly, the original module, the village of Nulb, the evil village, only had 4 areas designed. So we're fully fleshing out, not the entire village, but we're going to add a bunch more of locations, adventure locations there, and NPCs, good and evil. We have fully developed all 4 of the elemental nodes. That's where most of our new design is coming in. So if you remember in the original module, the elemental nodes, they gave you a map, they gave you an outline of encounter areas, and they gave you a bunch of stats. So we're going through and we are fully developing them with read aloud text, tactics, treasure, placing everything, basically making them fully designed levels. And that's where a lot of the additional material is. And then finally, trying to bring this classic to the modern game master and making it easier to run. We're adding read aloud text to areas that didn't have read aloud text, which there was many. We're adding a rumor table. We have numerous handouts. We have a preluding counter to kind of get things all tied in as far as the plot goes. New monsters, new spells, new magic items, NPC names. We get a lot of requests for NPC names. If you remember the original module, most of the NPCs were not named. So we named a few. We still kept a few unnamed, but we did put in a large table of here's a bunch of NPC names that you can use. And we actually have a really neat handout for the game master to kind of track the village locations and the affiliations, and for naming those NPCs that aren't done. So we're really trying to make this a product that's a lot more useful at the game table for the modern game master, so somebody could pick it up and run it. And I'll turn it over to Rick to have him talk about some of the conversion stuff.
Sure. Yeah, the conversion it's definitely been a challenging process. First off, I can speak, I think, for Chris and everyone on the team in that we're trying extremely hard to keep the feel of the original work and the tone. And, Gygax had a certain almost academic tone that he adopted, with a very expansive vocabulary, heavy on description, etc. So we're trying to keep that. And then simply from a translation period when it comes to things like monsters, the original Temple of Elemental Evil was obviously done on the first edition rules, and it had a very, I would say, aggressive level approach where every dungeon level really kind of went up very aggressively in level. And the idea was the players would start in the village of Hamlet at first level and really get to like 10th level or higher by the end. And walking down a set of stairs can immediately put you in a much more dire position. And many monsters that were at certain hit dice levels in first edition, for instance, dragons that are in the nodes, are now much more powerful creatures in latter editions of the game. So there's a lot of judgment call as far as translating creatures and trying to keep things balanced. And we're also offering adjustment notes. So we're translating things faithfully as far as the number of creatures and what creatures appear in what room to the original work. But then we're also putting in balancing notes, so anybody running this can also have notes built right into the book to adjust and, keep things balanced for modern 5th edition, not used to running away parties of adventurers. So.
That's awesome. So anything else you want to add that we forgot to mention about it, or just to close out the topic? I mean, there's a lot to say about it, but at the preview level, before people have had a chance to put their hands on it and dive into it.
Once again, it's an honor to be part of such an awesome project. I'd like to thank Joe for including myself on this and letting me assemble a team, because I spend a lot of time in my basement, as you're seeing right now, working on this. And
welcome to the club, Chris.
Yeah, and it's actually refreshing to actually have a team. And to have support and feel that it's not all up to me, because again, things have been a little bit upside down right now. We kind of hope to have all of the writing done by this point, but things have been a little bit different. Even the last 2 weeks, it's kind of been a shift to learning how to do Roll20 and Zoom and whatnot, instead of focusing on writing. But I'll be right back tomorrow night. I'll be right back to hitting the word processing and getting this thing across the finish line, which we are pretty close to. So.
Yeah, just to echo what Chris is saying, and I was literally working on it today. We're aggressively working on it, and we take this very seriously. I mean, this was a book that I actually bought 2 copies back in the day of it. That's how much I like it. So it's a project the original work is very dear to me. So we're all putting incredible effort into this. And I'm very excited to be part of it.
You guys, I mean, you ought to be part of it. You both earned it. For those who, you guys may not have seen Chris and Rick's names on some of the current DCC RPG products, but those of you who remember the 3rd edition, they both had quite a few credits to their name, but Chris actually wrote DCC number 7, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And, I just earlier showed you the preview to the cover art to DCC number 100. So he's been doing great work for quite a while now. So this is going to be awesome, and you guys are the perfect guys for it.
Thank you.
Cool. So, guys, I'm going to click the button that I think sends you back to purgatory. But thanks for visiting.
Everybody, good seeing you.
All right.
Virtually.
Talk to you later. Thanks. And there we go. And there we go. Thanks, guys. All right, and now we're going to pause for a minute to show another message from our sponsors while we switch to the next topic. All right. So Farrah Heftblade says, wear a mask, which I think you've all heard many times so far this week, but just reinforcing it the Goodman Games way. All right, now we're going to switch over and talk a little bit about something that Chris just referenced, which is virtual tabletop gaming. So we have the Twitch channel until 15 minutes after, and there's actually something starting in 15 minutes that I think you're all going to want to stay on and see. So here at Goodman Games, I shouldn't even say we, I have always been a huge fan of game stores and physical gaming, talking to people in person, going to conventions, things like that. And I think that kind of trickles down. So there's a lot of people on the crew who actually do quite a bit of online gaming, but I necessarily haven't embraced it in the past. And, you know, what I've embraced is other things like Free RPG Day or DCC Day or, you know, physical events like that. Conventions. We go to between 40 and 50 conventions a year, or at least we used to. But we have, I want to say, 6 con reps around the country who rep us in different regions. And it's always been really important to me to get out there and have people talking to gamers, engaging locally, and so on. There's all these ways to connect with gamers. And, of course, online's a huge way, too. And I haven't really embraced that at any point, mostly just because, I mean, there's no reason, really. There's nothing against online. It's just that other things have always caught my interest. But now, of course, we have to embrace online gaming because that's what's in front of us and that's what's available given the current state of the world. So we're going all in. So what I wanted to talk to you about next is some of the virtual tabletop support that we're currently working on that'll come your way soon. And specifically, the event that starts in 15 minutes will be Terry Olson running what I'm calling the world premiere of Dungeon Crawl Classics Lankmar number 11, The Rats of Ilfmar. The adventure has actually been run before. It was actually run by somebody earlier in this con at Cyclops Con. It's been play tested in public before. But what's premiering about his session that he's going to run is the virtual tabletop support. So you're going to see Terry rolled over Roll20 using the new maps and tokens for NPCs and monsters that'll be coming from Goodman Games. We've been working with Doug and Stefan and Brad and Will, and they've all been working furiously to paint some amazing tokens for us to then bring to you guys for use in online gaming. I'm going to stop there and go back a couple words just to listen carefully to what I just said. What I just said was these artists are painting maps and tokens. If you go to anywhere on the internet that sells virtual tabletop supplies, so to speak, but the maps or tokens and so on, pretty much nobody paints them. The prevailing approach is digital art. Actually, just to say it, I haven't been able to find an example of a company that paints them. I have found William McCausland actually physically sculpts them and photographs them, which are actually really cool, and we put that in the last newsletter. But everybody that I can tell does them via Photoshop or filters or whatever it is they're using in online tools to digitally create these images. And I've been just kind of scrolling through, looking at what's out there, and started a conversation with some of the artists about what do we want our version of this to look like. And where we all started circling around, we all thought about, what are the style of maps that we love that are, we obviously love the black and white maps that Doug and Stefan and Will and Brad and so on have produced for the module so far. But if you're going to do color art that is sort of centered around the notion of, moving around tokens on a map, what do we want to do and how do we do that? What do we make it look like? And where we all went to was Games Workshop products from the sort of mid to late 80s going into the early to mid 90s. I think we all remember Space Hulk. We all remember Talisman. We all remember, I believe Hero Quest. Games Workshop just had a lock on this awesome style of art back then that was hand-painted, map tiles / cardboard tiles, tokens for figures and things like that. And it looked amazing. And there's certain characteristics to it, right? It was brightly colored for the most part. It was clearly hand-painted. There were different tones and shades, but it wasn't all gray. It wasn't all black or dark colors. They often used pen and ink to line some of the elements of it, which you don't typically get in digital art. And it got me thinking about what's out there in the world of digital art for maps and tiles. And what is out there is, frankly, an homage to the colored gray. If you go out there and look at some of the online places that sell these things, it's like every dungeon in the world was made out of gray rock and then never revisited. But then you think about that and you say, in America, we make houses for the most part out of, wood, but it's not like every house is the color of wood. People paint their houses. So why wouldn't people paint dungeons? When you visualize dungeons, why do they all have to be, unworked gray stone? And then you start thinking about different styles of creatures that lives there. And, some of them may have dark vision, so they may see colors differently, or infravision, or whatever you want to think of it. But do they not use tiles? Do they not paint their walls? Do they not, why is the prevailing color of digital art overwhelmingly gray? So what you're going to see from Goodman Games is what I hope is a distinctive look and feel that reminds you fondly of the greatest era of Games Workshop style of map and tile art creation. I'm going to show you some examples now. Some of the artists have completed some illustrations already that'll eventually be coming your way for use on Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds and other such places. So let's just look at a couple. I'm going to switch the screens real quick. So this, I think you've all heard of the adventure Portal into the Stars. I'm obviously zoomed out, but these are Doug's screen illustrations for Portal into the Stars. So these will eventually be in a Roll20 product and eventually probably Fantasy Grounds as well. And you can see the look and feel here is completely different. I mean, I'm from Georgia originally, and we have more than one color of rock in Georgia. We're known for our red clay. So again, I don't know why every online map in the world is gray. There can be other colors in the way you look at online maps. And I also like the idea of having them be well lit. I'm not as big of a fan of these sort of dark, gloomy places that's how people often look at online mapping or mapping in Roll20. I think there's so many other ways to do it. So this is one example of what we're working on. This is Doug's painted maps for Portal into the Stars. And then I also just wanted to sort of zoom in a little bit and show you this. Of course, in many of these online programs, depending on how you play, you can zoom in or out. So you can zoom in here and see even more detail, for example. Of course, the whole map is designed to be zoomed into, and it has a grid, but it's not what I consider to be that sort of, restrictive gray lines overlapping everything you do. But the grid is implied by the art and good enough that you can clearly use the grid if you, choose to. But DCC is not a miniatures game, so it's up to you if you'd like to use it or not. Then switching over to another image, Doug's working on the maps for People of the Pit. Again, the virtual tabletop maps, and you can see an example here of anyway, I actually wrote this adventure. It's a really fun adventure and a really creepy adventure, but you can see here his painted version of one of the levels. And again, you'll be able to zoom in on this and make it as big or as small as you'd like so that you can make the game run however you want. Here's another example of another map from People of the Pit that Doug has been working on. And again, not every map in the world has to be gray. This, I think, does a great job at getting across. This adventure is themed around a crazy tentacled monster buried deep underneath. And I think these colors that he chose helps get across that theme very, very well. And here is just another image where we sort of zoomed in on one of the rooms in that map just to show you what it would look like on screen if you were to zoom in. There's if you go back to those original Games Workshop references that I was mentioning, it was just great stuff. It was great stuff. If you don't own, the original Space Hulk or Talisman or some of these original things, you should get a copy. Go on eBay right now. Anyway, but they were all hand drawn, and so you would see these subtle variations in the look and feel of them, just like Doug expressed here. So one other example to show you is this one right here. This is actually, if you're about to play in Terry's session, don't look too closely at this, but this is the map to Rats of Golfmar that will be, Terry will be running in just a couple minutes. I need to wrap up here so he can go live. Anyway, this is another example of the way a dungeon could look if people were to paint it or use tiles. It doesn't have to be all the same color. And then again, just to zoom in on one specific part of it, this is what you can see in the lower left here, a secret door that he sort of painted a little differently that you can cover up as you play and then reveal. But you can, again, show many different ways of exploring this dungeon. So just to close out with the last couple things, we do intend to have hand-painted tokens for you to use in your game. So, and again, these are all, what I'm showing you here is pretty raw art, not quote-unquote, processed. So we'll obviously, over time, refine these and put them, borders around them and so on. And actually, just to answer one of the questions coming from the stream, if you have bought something already, like Portal into the Stars through Fantasy Grounds, eventually this will come to that as an update. We have to kind of finish all the work on it first. And actually, I should take that opportunity to say the next Kickstarter that you will see from us, there's many things I would love to get out and release to you, as I covered earlier, but with spotty access to printers and distributors and so on, it's hard to really commit to that. But the next live Kickstarter you will see from Goodman Games will be around virtual tabletop support. We're doing a lot of these as mock-ups and examples. We'd like to, frankly, convert a huge part of the line. And so that's what you'll see coming in a couple weeks as soon as we put it together as our next big Kickstarter. But anyway, here are some examples actually from the Rats of Elfmar, some of the tokens that you'll see if you watch Terry's game, which will be streaming in about 5 minutes. We also have, here's another example of a couple monsters. These are from Portal into the Stars as painted by Doug Kovacs. We have a wide variety of player character options that will also be coming out. This assortment is by Brad McDevitt. And again, these are all painted quite small, which is the idea because you can use them in virtual tabletop settings. And you'll notice these are all male characters. We also intend to paint a good supply of female versions of the PCs as well. So these are still coming along in process, but these are a couple by William McCausland, and there will be more as well. So that is some of what we're working on, and I hope it gives you a good idea of what we're going to have to offer you in the coming, hopefully weeks, maybe months, depending on how long it goes. But the goal is to embrace online gaming, which we're all in this boat together. Find a way for you guys to connect via our events page, our Twitch channel, things like DCC Day, Cyclops Con, and then give you guys the tools to run exciting events online. So guys, that's it for my time today. I'm actually 10 minutes over, and Terry's about to go live soon. So if you get a chance, hang on for about 5 minutes, and Terry Olson is going to go live shortly, running Dungeon Crawl Classics Linkmar number 11, the Rats at Elfmar, and he will be using a wide variety of these maps and tokens, so you'll get to see them live in use on Roll20. But it's been great talking to you. Thanks for having me. And I know I don't have any time for questions. Sorry about that. But feel free to email us or post them to the forums or Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or what else? Discord. Anywhere else. We'll try to catch them. If we miss them in one place, just shoot them to us another place. And the goal is to answer all the questions. So thanks a lot, everybody. And